In the last class, what we have been discussing was something called how do you do Boolean circuit minimization. Like couple of lectures, almost last two lectures, we have been dealing with this topic of something called Boolean circuit minimization. First, we kind of motivated why we require it, why this is still relevant, and then we saw various techniques by which you can do this. Okay, but primarily the techniques which were involved were fundamentally the idea in the techniques, the two techniques we used, which was basically the Karnoff maps and the McCluskey method. The prime idea in both of these techniques was to find the common terms, right? So you have two things. You have a standard normal form, okay, which is suppose sum of various min terms. So what you try to do, you try to change it from standard normal form to a simple normal form wherein you didn't had all the terms as min terms, right? So main idea in both of these techniques was to identify some common terms which you would take common, and you would get a reduced expression, right? And for this there were various approaches which we took. Like in Karnoff map, for two three variables we had different kinds of combination. You could group up the adjacent cells. When we move to three variables, you could also group up the adjacent cells in a wrapped manner. When you moved up to four variables, right, then it could you could wrap up around top as well as left, right, as well as within it. Okay, so all these were different kinds of strategies we used, but what was the prime idea behind, whether it was K-maps or it was McCluskey? Like if you recall McCluskey also, in this what we did is we represented each of our possible min terms first in form of bit strings. Okay, after that what we did, we assigned the bit strings in descending order, and then we saw how many bits are common, like, or what are the possible two pair combinations wherein they differ only by one bit, right? And wherever they differed, we put a dash, and others we repeated as it is, and we kept on doing this till we got a reduced term, right? So if you look at all the idea, whether it was K-maps or McCluskey, the main idea was to get the reduced expression by finding the common terms, right? And that is how we try to do the Boolean circuit minimization, right? But that's not the end of the world. Like suppose you got a reduced term which are not now min terms, they are just product of some literals. But the question is, can you reduce it further? Okay, is there any method by which I can reduce it further? Is there, I mean, generally not for all, but for some expressions, can I reduce it further even after taking all the common terms out? Are there any standard techniques which can actually help me go even one step down to reduce the circuit from, you can see here I require two gates, which can actually reduce it from 2 to 1? Okay, so that is something which we'll discuss today briefly. And then finally what we'll discuss today are the is the most important aspect of this course, which I've always tell that what are the applications of this module. Okay, and that's how we'll end this module, by discussing various applications of this logic and proportional calculus. Okay, but what we'll start from, our main motivation, the starting topic for today is that can we go beyond the Boolean circuit minimization achieved by K-maps and McCluskey? Okay, is there something which can actually help us go beyond that? Okay, so with these words, let us start today's discussion. Any questions from previous lectures? Anything that's unclear from last week's lectures? So I assume there's nothing. In case there's something, just please feel free to interrupt me. Okay, so what we are going to discuss today is, as I said, something called function completeness. Okay, so let us first understand what do I mean when I say there is function completeness. So if I have a set of operations, okay, it could be, currently I'm talking about Boolean algebra. So suppose it's Boolean sum, Boolean product, and complement. Any, in general, in mathematics, I say any set of operations, okay, is functionally complete, or we say it's universal set if every function in that domain can be expressed by means of those operations. Okay, that means if suppose I say I give you a set Boolean sum and Boolean product, and I tell you that I can compute all Boolean operations using it, then it's a functionally complete set. Okay, what I mean is I can also perform complement using these two operations. Then this is a functionally complete set. Okay, so in general, this is a very generic definition. Any set of operations we say is functionally complete or a universal set if all the underlying functions in that domain can be done using that set of operations. Okay, like for the Boolean functions, a given set of Boolean functions is functionally complete if all possible Boolean functions can be constructed from that set. Okay, and obviously with some input variables. Okay, so let us go back to the Boolean algebra case. So in general, if I have to discuss Boolean algebra, what are the various operations present? If you recall, there are just three operations, right? There is complement, there is Boolean sum, and there is Boolean product. Okay, so so if you consider the three operations itself, the complement, the Boolean sum, sorry, the Boolean product, the Boolean sum, and complement, we know this is functionally complete because these are the only operations in Boolean algebra, right? So if we consider this set of three operations, Boolean product, Boolean sum, and complement, this is functionally complete because all possible operations which I need to perform in Boolean algebra are just these three. So they automatically can perform all the operations in Boolean field. So the question comes, can we find a set of functionally complete operators which is smaller than three? Okay. Can anyone tell me, is there any possibility that I can get a complete set or functionally complete set which is smaller than this set, the set of three operators? I mean, at least two. Can I have any Boolean operation which is of size 2? Okay. Okay, by 2 I mean all the three operations should be then performed using it. What do you think? Is there any way? Yes, class? Think about it a bit. So, what is our requirement? Our requirement is I need two operations out of these three which can perform all the operations. That means, suppose I take addition, Boolean sum, and complement, it should somehow be able to represent Boolean product as well. Then I can say it's functionally complete. Okay, or if I take Boolean product and complement, it should be able to perform Boolean sum without using it directly. Similarly, if I take Boolean product and Boolean sum, it should be able to do complement as well. Okay, so whichever is the missing operator, the given operator should be able to do that job. So is there any set, do you think, which is functionally complete and smaller than the size of 3? Okay, Japsima says Boolean sum and this is complement, right? Japsima? Okay, so Japsima thinks Boolean sum and complement are functionally complete. Anyone else? Anyone else? See, first you need to understand what do you mean by functionally complete. Functionally complete means all the operations in that domain should be able to be performed by that given set. Okay. So anyone else? Okay. So Abhay says Boolean product and complement. Okay. Excellent. So Japsimar and Abhay, okay, tell me how will you then get the corresponding operations? So Japsimar said Boolean sum and complement. How will you get product from it? You need to get product from it, right? So if I suppose have x plus y, okay, how do I get x y from it? Okay, class. So here's the question. So what Japsimar and Abhay have written, they are correct answers, but let us see how do I get it. Okay, so she has said Boolean sum and complement are functionally complete. Okay, so if I want to get Boolean sum of two operations, it's already there. If I want to get complement of any operation, it's already there. Okay, but how do I get Boolean product? Just using Boolean sum. Anyone? Is there any method by which, excellent Hasi, by Boolean De Morgan's law? Can you tell me exactly what should I write to get xy product of two? No, Abhay, currently I'm talking about the set that Japsimar mentioned, not your set, wherein I have just Boolean sum. Okay, so my tools, the tools I have is just a Boolean sum. So I cannot take Boolean product. Okay, so it's like I have only one gate which can perform Boolean sum, which is OR gate. I don't have an AND gate. Okay, so Akhila says x plus y whole complement. Okay, so what will it be equal to, Akhila? It will be equal to x complement into y complement. Okay, but I want xy. Okay, so you have to, no, Japsima, let's keep it generic. Okay, I want to have, I have sum of variables, I have complement of variables, I want to have product of variables. Excellent. That's right. Dhananjay asked it. Okay, so what I'll do x complement plus y complement whole complement. Okay, what will this do? It will give me x complement into y complement, which is xy. Okay, so we can say this is functionally complete, right? And the set which Abe also said, which is Boolean product and complement, this is also functionally complete. Why? Because if I have to get addition, how can I get that? I'll simply take product of the complements whole complement. Okay, by De Morgan's law, it will give me complement plus complement of y, which is x plus y. Okay, so is it clear how Boolean sum complement and Boolean product complement are functionally complete? Okay, why they are functionally complete? Because all three operations, whether it's a Boolean product, sum, or complement, can be performed using just these two operators. Okay, is this clear to everyone? How these two sets are functionally complete? Yes, class, is this clear? Say a yes or no. I'll repeat if there's something unclear or I'll move forward. Okay, this is clear to everyone? How this is functionally complete? Okay. So before I move ahead, so tell me something. Is this functionally complete set? Boolean sum and Boolean product? So Hasib, did you say yes for this or before? Do you think this is functionally complete? How do I get a complement from it? See, I'll get Boolean sum directly because operator is there. I can get Boolean product because operator. How do I get complement? So, anyone, is this functionally complete or it's functionally incomplete? Yes, class. I want all of you to agree or disagree. Okay, it's incomplete, right? Because we cannot get complement out of it. So, Boolean sum complement and Boolean product complement are functionally complete. But if you take just Boolean sum and product, it's not functionally complete because you cannot express the complement form, using these two operators. Okay, so we moved from a set of three operators to a set of two operators. Now the question is, can I reduce it to a single operator? Is there any Boolean operator which can, which I can use? Okay, and it's functionally complete. So we moved from a size of 3 to 2 and we are just aiming for 1. Can there be a set, a functionally complete set, which represents all the operations of, your Boolean algebra and it's just a single operator? Is it possible? No? Think little hard. It may not be a direct one. Okay, it may be some indirect ones which we have studied. Okay, let me just give some hints. Okay, so which gate is used to represent boolean sum? Okay, Hasib got the answer already. That's correct, Hasib. Okay, so let me just also build it for others. So which boolean gate is used to represent a sum? Which gate is used to represent a boolean sum? And gate, or gate, or, right? And which gate is used to represent a negative sign? Sorry, the complement? Not, right? Similarly, boolean product and complement not. Okay, and do we have a gate which is combination of not and or? Excellent. So that is the gates which can actually give us the functionally complete set. Okay, if you have studied in your 12th class also, these were known as universal gates. Okay, and universal name comes from the fact that they are functionally complete. Okay, NAND and NOR are in Boolean algebra or Boolean circuits are known as universal gates because of this reason that they are functionally complete. They can give you any possible additions, product, complement operation by just using them. Okay, so let us see the NAND and NOR gates. Okay, so NAND and NOR gates are the smallest possible Boolean functionally complete sets. Okay, sometimes NAND is represented by this vertical dash. Okay, so NAND, if you recall, is simply uh, and followed by not. Okay, so 1 and 1 is 1, but if you do a not, it becomes 0. So 1 and 1 is 0. Similarly, 1 and 0 is 0. 1 0 and 0 is 1, and similarly you have this NOR operator defined by the or followed by NOT gate. Okay, and both of them are functionally complete. Okay, and you can easily check it because if you want to get, suppose, complement of an operator, can you tell me how can I get complement of a variable using NAND gate? Can you tell me how do I get a complement of a operator using NAND gate? Yes, you can do a x NAND x, okay, which will give you x complement, right? Because if it is 1, 1, it will give you 0, and if it is 0, 0, it will give you 1, right? So you can get all possible operations, whether it's Boolean sum can you tell me how to get Boolean sum from AND? So we are talking about NAND gate. How to get a Boolean sum from NAND? So NAND is basically your x and complement, okay, which means x complement plus y complement. Okay, but now what I want is only x plus y. So how can I get x plus y using NAND? Yes, class, tell me in terms of NAND, how can I get Boolean sum in terms of NAND gate? This is simple. I told you NAND is simply and followed by complement. Okay, which you can see by De Morgan's law is x complement plus y complement. Okay, now I want the output to be just x plus y. So what should be my input variables? Okay, very good. So you have uh, x complement, which is x, which we already know is xx, NAND y complement, right? And you will get the, sorry, you put an and there. Basically what you need is input should be a complement as well as y should be a complement, right? Because if you have both of them as complement, only then you will get x plus y. Okay, similarly you can do it for Boolean product as well. Okay, so you can see that the NAND and vice versa, nor both are functionally complete operators. Okay, what do we mean by functionally complete? Whatever is the given set, you have to express all operations using that set only. Okay, so we saw three versions. We saw a set of size 3, which was boolean sum, product and complement. Then we saw a set of size 2, which was boolean sum and complement, or boolean or and complement. And then finally we saw a size of 1 boolean functionally complete set, which is either NAND or NOR gate. Okay, is this clear, the concept of function completeness? What do we mean by that? Yes, class, is this clear? And is it clear that it's practical importance? Its practical importance comes from the fact that you need to, it will reduce the amount or the different types of components involved in making your circuits. Okay, is this clear? Function completeness to everyone? Yes, class, is this clear? Okay, excellent. So let us then finally proceed to the final aspect of this module, which is the applications. Okay, as I have been telling, it's the most important aspect, because no matter how much theory you study, the main thing is you should know where is it relevant to your branch. Okay, where is it relevant to you as computer science IT engineers. Okay, so let us try to see, first have an overview of where all propositional logic and calculus is used, and then we'll try to go through them in little detail. Okay, so in general, if you look at logic, logic has applications not just relevant to computer science, it has applications catering to mathematics, electronic circuitry design, puzzle making, and many more. Okay. In general, whenever we speak in our natural language, okay, or language which is used in science, or language which is used in mathematics, they sometimes tend to be ambiguous. By ambiguous, I mean that you cannot really say whether that statement is, precisely true or false. They are very imprecise statements. Okay. So, in general, whenever you need to make any precise statements where there is no ambiguity, normally what is done is such statements are always changed into language of logic. Okay, by language of logic means they'll be written in terms of some propositional or predicate statements, wherein you can exactly do the various operations. You can use boolean, you can use conjunction, disjunction, complement or implication, and all those things. So anywhere wherever there is an ambiguity in discussing any sort of language or statements, if you want to make them more precise, uh, uh, one of the best methods suggested is to translate them into logic language. Similarly, like I can give you an example that logic is specifically used if you want to, specify the hardware and software specifications. Okay, so if you are a software developer and you have to make a software for some candidate, for some of your applicants, like who want some product from you, so before you start actually development, you can get the specifications. What kind of OS should it support? What should be the processor? What should be the hardware? What should be the ambient conditions? All those specifications can actually be specified as logic. So if you specify your specifications as logic, then testing becomes easy. Okay, so what you can simply do is you can keep each condition as suppose a proportional statement, and if all of them are satisfied, I'll take a and between them, then you say that the testing is satisfied. Okay, so in general, whenever we want to specify some specifications, whether it's software or hardware, that's something which can easily be done in using logic. Similarly, as we already saw in Boolean algebra section, that if you want to design circuits, or circuit design can entirely be done using your logic. Okay. Similarly, if you want to construct or verify your correctness of your program, you give some input, and is it giving some output or not? Is it a valid program or not? That can also be done using logic. Okay, apart from that, things like solving puzzles, okay, or construct checking proofs automatically. Okay, this is a very vast area of research in computer science, which is known as automatic verification. very well known area of computer science research, automatic verification, wherein you have thousands and thousands of lines of code which you cannot manually verify. Okay, how do you verify it? You can go for automatic verification, which has the fundamentals in logic only. Okay, like if you want to have an overview idea, the way automatic verification works is the input that you give to, you write your code or your program as a a compound statement, a collection of compound statements. Okay, then the input you give to your program, those inputs you give to your variables. Okay, and once you give the variables to that compound statement, if it returns a true or false, accordingly you can see whether the proof or the programs are verified or not. Okay, so all these this is kind of an overview where all logic is applied. So let's look at all of them in little more detail. So first application, as I told you, is of logic is how to translate normal English sentences in logic. Okay, so if you look like what is the need for this, as I already mentioned, in general English or any human language is often ambiguous. When we talk in normal spoken language, there's no preciseness there. A lot of times the things we use makes our statements very unambiguous. Okay, so best way if you want to kind of operate on those sentences is to change them into compound statements. Okay, what are compound statements? Compound statements will be basically your simple proportional variables connected by various logical connectives. It could be conjunction, disjunction, complement, implication. Okay, so let us see just a simple example, which could also be a recap of whatever you have studied so far. Suppose I give you an English sentence which needs to be translated into logical expression. Okay, so by now you should know what all words represent, various logical connectives. Okay, so here is our English sentence. You can access the internet from campus only if you are a computer science major or you are not a freshman. Okay, so there are various ways by which I can attack this problem of changing the English sentence to logical expression. Okay, one simplest way is I can say that this entire compound statement is one P. Okay, is this a good way to decompose the sentence? Can I then apply operations or separate out, sub sentences from this? If I represent this entire sentence as a single proportional variable P, is it precise? What do you think? Is this a good way to decompose it into logical expression? Yes, class? What do you think? If I represent this entire compound sentence by a single proportional variable, is this a precise or unambiguous way of handling this sentence in logic? Yes? Is it or is it not? What do you think? So by precise, I mean if I have to suppose apply some operation on it, suppose a negation or with something, can I do it easily? You cannot, right? Because there are so many aspects to it. There is access to internet, there's computer science major, there's freshman. It's not very good idea to represent all these conditions into single, right? Exactly, Hasi. The best way is to break it down. Okay, can you suggest me a possible breakdown? What could be a good breakdown of this? Okay, so tell me. So suppose I first proportional variable I consider p, so what should I keep p? Yes, suggest me some breakdown class. Okay, great. So that can be our first statement. That is, you can access internet from campus. Great. Okay, so that's our first breakdown. What next? Okay, so let me make it Q. Come on, class, this is easy. Okay, great. I'll write it in short. Computer science major and class, you are a freshman. Okay, let me keep it generic. Okay, now can you tell me using p, q and r how can I write a logical expression out of it? Okay, so there are some keywords. Okay, you have only if, you have a or, you have a not, which we know have logical connective equivalence. Okay, now can you tell me using only if, or, not, and PQR, can you write me a logical expression? Give it a try, class. It can be worst case wrong. It's perfectly okay. Okay, but don't you think only if is missing a bit? Okay. When do we use only if, class? So or is simple, you can use or. Not is simple, you can use a complement. So definitely we have Q or this, right? What about this only if? Great. So this is what we can have. We can have, you can access internet only if you are a computer science major or you are not a freshman, right? So that's correct, Ankita. Implication is represented by, okay, so there are a number of examples you can practice, but I was just showing you this is one of the very popular applications of logic, of translating the English sentences to logic. Okay, how does it help? Now if you want to apply any complex proportional application to it, you apply a universal quantifier, you apply existential quantifier, now you can easily work upon this statement. But if you had to apply universal or existential quantifier to English statement, it would have been difficult. Okay, so that is the first catch, that where is logic used? It's used to make unambiguous English sentences more precise, so that you can apply various operations to it. Okay, is this application clear? Okay, it's the main click here is that you try to remove the ambiguity by changing into the language of logic. Okay, so that was your first application. Okay, second widely used application of this proportional logic and calculus is system specifications. Okay, as I mentioned already in the overview slide. So if you are suppose a software developer, so whenever we develop software, there are certain requirements. Like suppose a particular software will run on a Ubuntu OS, on a Linux based OS, but may not run on Microsoft or Mac for that matter, right? Or it may run on a PC which has say above 8 GB of RAM, okay, or number, some amount of specific level of hard disk. Okay, so in general, whenever you make any software, it's impossible to say that it will run for all. Normally you'll always have some hardware and software constraints, right? So in general, most of the system or software engineers, when they take requirement, see, they cannot ask the person who for whom they want to build software, give us your system requirement in form of logic, right? They always will ask her like in spoken language, like what is your requirement, what is your base requirement you want. Okay, but we know in general that natural language is not precise, it's ambiguous. So once you get, as software or system developers, as you get your requirements in natural language, so before you start your software development cycle, okay, the first stage is always involving logic. How? Because whatever requirements you have got in natural language, they are first translated into your logic expressions so that you can start your development. Okay, so I'll show you an example, that suppose there's a software developer who needs to make an automatic email checker. Okay, so following is the specification which is required by this checker. Automated reply cannot be sent when the file system is full. Okay, so this is kind of a bounding on this automatic checker, that you cannot send a reply if your file system or your email box is full. Okay, now if I want to change it into the logical expression, okay, so suppose I use these two connectives. I say let p denote the automated reply can be sent, and q denote the file system is full. Okay, so I have just breaking down the sentence into two sub sentences. P denotes automatic reply can be sent, and Q denotes the file system is full. Okay, now using these two notations, can you tell me how can I represent this specification? Okay, so someone has told me in spoken language, automated reply checker, whoever, whatever you make, it cannot and it should not send anything when the file system is full. Okay, so now after they have given me requirements, I wanted to change it into logic. So this is the notation I used. P for automated reply can be sent, and Q for while system is full. Okay, so what would be the logical equivalent of the this sentence in terms of P and Q? Yes, class. Can you tell? Can anyone tell what could be the? So you can see there's nothing like only if and only if. There's a word when used, right? But what is when? When is also kind of conditional. It's checking some condition. Okay, so Hasib wrote it already. Please, I want others also to try. You know what is P, you know what is Q, and you have the sentence, right? So tell me what could be the equivalent expression in the logic. I want to change the sentence. Yes, class? Come on, class. Now, this is the last class of logic, so you should be very proactively attempting answers. In the worst case, it could be wrong, but you can at least guess. There's just two variables, and hardly, I think, two operators would be used. Yes, class, I want all to try it. So you can see, first thing clear is this is automated reply cannot be sent, while this is can be sent. So definitely not of P is going to be used, right? The only thing is how do you use it? Okay, so yes, so you have when the system is full, then automated reply cannot be sent. Okay, so whether you use P before or Q before, like I see a lot of answers having not of P before Q. This you will get with practice. You know, you need to see in conditional statement what is the condition being checked and what is the consequence. Okay, so you need to go back to that slide where we saw various versions of the implication. You know, which one should be written in which form. Okay, so for that you need to revisit that and see what is the consequence and what is the condition. Okay, but yes, this is one of the, again, a popular example or application of logic, which is to specify the system specifications. Okay, now let's move further. The next application, and a very relevant application, I don't think there's anyone in this world who uses internet who is not touched by this application, which is Boolean search. Okay, so let us see what do we mean by Boolean search. So in general, logical connectives which we use, like the and, the or, and not, these are very extensively used in the search engines. You know, when you are trying to search for web pages. Okay, so all this kind of search which uses the techniques from proportional logic, such kinds of search are known as Boolean search. Okay, so in this, what you do in Boolean search, if you suppose want to search for say you want to search for keywords new, as well as Delhi. Okay, so the way you can write is new and Delhi. Okay, so this would mean you search for web pages which include new as well as Delhi. Okay, if you instead of and write a or here, then it will you will see the results that are returned by the search engine. They will either have new or Delhi or both. Okay, but you can also have one of them. But if you use and, then necessarily all the results of your search will have both these terms. Okay, similarly, if you use suppose not Delhi, then it will return all the web pages which will not have a single occurrence of Delhi word. Okay, now where is it practically used? So in general, if you look at Google search, when you do Google search, and when you write any sentence there, suppose you want to search for like what is Boolean algebra. Okay, so implicitly the way Google works is it implicitly places an ad. Okay, but you can always overshadow Google, and if you want to apply not or any other specific operator, you can write it. Like Google has its own some key search words. If you anytime search like this site colon and then write some site, it will never return you random pages, it will return a website. Okay, similarly there are if you write in URL or URL, it will return only URL as the results. So when we normally do a Google search, at the back end, it's all automatically adding these logical connectives. Okay, not just Google. If you do search on LinkedIn or Facebook, they are also at the back end based on Boolean search only. They use some implicit logical, connectives at the back end between the words you have mentioned. Okay, and each search engine has its own. Like Google has its own, Bing has its own. So all the different search engines, they have their own strategies of what to use implicitly. Okay, and you can always explicitly also change the way they search. Okay, so this is a very very relevant and very directly connected application of your proportional calculus, which we use on very daily basis, and we normally tend to ignore because you don't realize whatever is going on, like all the people day in day out use so much Google, but whatever is the fundamental idea there is these Boolean search. They're using these connectives implicitly. Okay, is this clear, class, how Boolean search and logic are connected? See, these are very interesting examples because this makes you feel that whatever theory you have been reading for past 2 weeks, it's not irrelevant. It's going to be used somewhere, it is being used somewhere. Okay, so this I feel is the most important kind of lecture for this whole module. Is this clear, the applications we discussed so far? Translation, uh, system requirement, Boolean search. Is this clear, class? Yes, class, is this clear? I've been telling about your batch to all students that they are very proactive batch, but you have kind of slowed down. Okay, is this clear? Okay, great. Okay, so yet another application which we have already discussed a lot in detail is the design of logic circuits. Okay, so first time the idea of using proportional logic for design of computer hardware, whether it's adder, subtractor, comparator, that idea was first developed by someone called Claude Shannon. And interestingly, it was a master's thesis. He was doing his MS, and he realized that proportional logic can actually be used for circuit design. Okay, and from there on, this whole business has grown so fast. Now, from simple logic circuits, you move to various levels of integrated circuits, right? But what is the prime idea? Prime idea is still the same. You will have some logic circuit made up of basic logic gates, okay, or their combination, and they'll get some inputs, okay, which will just be either a off, which is like your Boolean zero, or it will be on. Okay, you'll have combinations of either on or off, and that will produce your output signal. Okay, and we already saw this in detail, how you can have a proper circuit design, how can you minimize it, how can you write the standard forms of it. Okay, so this is something which we already covered in Boolean algebra section, that one of the popular applications of logic is the design of circuits. Okay, now coming to the last example, which is again very 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 relevant, is something called proportional satisfiability. Okay, so let's first try to understand, it's slightly new topic, what do we mean by satisfiability, and then we'll see where this proportional satisfiability is required in practical applications. Okay, so let us first see satisfiability. So when we have a compound proposition which is made up of various simple propositions, we say that such a proposition is a satisfiable proposition if there exists an assignment of truth values. By truth values, it need not be just true, it can be true or false both, any combination of true or false values which can be assigned to its variables, which makes it true. Okay, which means I have some compound statement, suppose P or not of P, okay, and there is some assignment of uh, values to the variables which will overall make it a true value, okay. If there exists any such assignment, then such a statement is said to be a satisfiable statement, okay. In other words, we say a compound proportion is unsatisfiable if and only if its negation is true for all assignments of truth variables, or in other words, if the negation of this is a tautology. Okay, so let's see, is P or not of P satisfiable? Okay, for satisfiable, what do you require? There should at least be one assignment of truth values given to the variables which will make it true. So do you think this is satisfiable? Is there any assignment of variables I can give to P which will make it true? I just need one assignment. Yes, class, is there any assignment? Is there any assignment of value that I can give to P? Exactly. Like I if so actually this P or P is always a tautology, right? So if I put a value of true to it, so I get true or false, which is always true. If I give it the value false, it's still true, right? Uh, Similarly, tell me this: if I write P and P, is this satisfiable or is it unsatisfiable? So that makes it unsatisfiable. Okay, if there is even single assignment which makes you true, you are satisfiable. Okay, so it's like this: for satisfiability, there should exist at least one assignment. Okay, for unsatisfiable, there should be completely no assignment. Okay, so it's like its negation should be a tautology. Okay, so we know that this is a contradiction because any value I give, it will always be false. So if I put value true, not of true is false, so this is false. If I put a value of false, it's still false, right? So this is unsatisfiable. Okay, tell me something about this example. Is it satisfiable or unsatisfiable? For satisfiable, any one assignment will also work. If there is any one assignment of the values P, Q, and R for which this is true, it is said to be satisfiable. So suppose I give it the values, say true, true, false. Okay, which means this becomes false, false, true. Is it true? No. Let's look for this combination. So since there are three variables, there are eight possible combinations. I'm just randomly picking one. Is this true for this? Okay, so good. Some people have written the combination. So I have true, true, false. So this makes it true, right? And then I have false, false, true. This makes it true. So this is true. Okay. Similarly, if I have any other, even if there are other combinations now which are false, but it's still satisfiable because I have at least one assignment for which this is true. Okay, so in general, when you have to check a given statement is satisfiable or not, you just have to look for one combination of variables for which this is true. Okay, and one is sufficient. But if you have to show unsatisfiable, in that case, you have to show that for all possible combinations, it's false. Okay, is this clear how to prove something is satisfiable and how to prove something is unsatisfiable? Yes, class, is this clear? How to prove satisfiability and unsatisfiability? Okay, excellent. Okay, so let us just end this module now. So, where is satisfiability used? Okay, so there are diverse areas where this satisfiability part is used, like robotics. Okay, in robotics, when you have to train your robot, the way you do it is you give it some sense of statements. Okay, like tell you a very simple example. Like if you have a line follower robot, okay, so if someone has followed robotics, so one of the standards, something which you start from in like in the first lecture of robotics, is a line follower robot. This is a very simple case. So what line follower robot is, the way you train it is you tell it wherever there is a line of this dark color, say mostly black or blue, which don't reflect much, you tell it you have to move forward. Okay, and wherever you, it's based on sensors, wherever you don't see it, then you have to make a turn based on where you see the light coming from. So this is exactly a satisfiability condition, right? Because what you are telling it is, if your certain conditions are met, you know all of them are true, then you do some action. If one of them fails, you don't do the action. So robotics, software testing, CAD, machine vision, integrated circuit design, genetics, all of them very widely use this concept of proportional satisfiability, wherein you try to check for assignment, assignment of values to the variables which make this condition true. Okay, and a Sudoku is a very simple application which also follows this case. Okay, there the simple way you can model Sudoku using the proportional satisfiability is, you keep these constraints. You know that your sum should be equal to the given number, whatever is the size of your matrix, and the conditions which all things you need to match. You know whether it's a row, column, diagonal. Okay, so all these are very practical and relevant examples where logic plays a role. Okay, so that's it for this second module, which is logic and proportional calculus. So I'll stop there. Any questions?